Players podcast. I'm Freestyle. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time joining me, the philosophy of this podcast is to speak to the players who are shaping the metagame so that their voices can be heard. This week's voice, Kirblinxy, the format champion for Pauper. His story is beyond unique, and I've been so eager to share it with you. In order to qualify for the format championship, you had to do well in leagues, well enough to be able to play in one of the playoffs. From there, you had to top 8 the playoff or come close enough to top 8 while someone already qualified found their way into top 8, passing down that invitation. Well, I qualified for the format championship. Kirblinxy didn't. That's right. He didn't earn an invite. The format champion was an uninvited one. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Jamie Schoneveld. I go by the MTGO username of Kirblinxy. I'm 29 years old. I live in Queensland, Australia. It's very hot where I am right now. I don't know what else to say.
Well, could you tell me about how you started playing Magic the Gathering?
So I started playing Magic the Gathering in 7th grade, which is the 8th grade actually, which was that's the very first year of high school. I saw a couple of guys playing with, weird looking pieces of card in a table, and I thought, well, that looks interesting. And yeah, as you do, you join in and you have a good time, and I've been playing it for years since. I'm trying to think of what year that was. I think it was 2003 is probably when I started playing. It was around Onslaught era.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about 2003. That was actually right when I started as well.
Yeah, and you have no idea about rules and whatnot, because I remember at the start when they were playing, they used to play with Goblin Grenade, and they always thought you could just sack any number of goblins to Goblin Grenade to do 5 damage per goblin.
That's a pretty good card.
Oh, I know. 1 mana. You get to kill everyone. How good's that?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that a little bit as well, because there's this rare called Quicksilver Amulet, right? It's an artifact. It's from Urza's. It's been reprinted a few times. 4 colorless, and it has ability 4 colorless, tap, put a creature from your hand into play. And I used to get people with Phage the Untouchable because I was like, I'm putting it in from my hand, and Phage says it has to come into play from my hand, so this works. And no one ever questioned that, so
yeah, it works as how the card is written. It's all good.
Yeah, I had no idea, but I remember those days. Well, there wasn't a wealth of information available back then. There wasn't like MTG Arena or really much of anything to help you figure out how to play the game.
No, because I remember the very first starter deck I got was the Legion's Elves Precon, and Jesus Almighty, was that thing like so overpowered as a precon. If anyone else had any other precon, it just crushed it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got a precon, but they did make some silly ones back in the day. I remember the Rats one that had Umazawa's Jittes in it, as well as Marinars, I believe. So, also a good precon in terms of value and just general playability. So, when did you start playing Pauper?
So, I tried to look this up because I knew that I started playing MTGO like ages ago and then dropped off and came back. But I found posting of a deck I did in a Pauper Daily in 2012, which is rather interesting, and it actually quite relates to the deck I took to Champs, except it runs Desecrator Hag. Do you know what Desecrator Hag does? Because I didn't remember until I found this list.
I've never heard of that one. That's a deep cut.
Yeah, so it's 2 Golgari, so it's the hybrid, and it's just like a Gravedigger, except you can only bring back the creature with the highest power from your graveyard to your hand.
Well, why would you get any of the other ones, right? Like, just get the big one.
Yeah, because the deck played 4 Blastoderm. That was a Pauper staple back in the day.
I'll have to take your word on that. I was actually on a bit of a hiatus during those years, so I really have no idea what the Pauper scene looked like at that time.
Overall, yeah, I'm not too sure either. I can't remember it, but I looked at the other decks that like 4-1 that daily, and they were all red-blue Goblin Storm. So it was a pretty hostile meta by the look of it, and here I am with my silly green-white little kid deck, I guess, beating in. So that was good. So yeah, I started playing Pauper since 2012, and then I just didn't play MTGO for a bit because I was at uni and I had no money, and it's hard to play silly decks and maintain win percentage. And then I came back probably 2017, maybe 2016. I've pretty much been playing White-Black Pestilence ever since, and it's had its ups and downs. It's rather down at this point in time, but overall it's been a pretty decent deck.
Would you say it's your favorite deck, of all time in terms of Pauper?
I'd say it's my favorite. Of all time in Pauper. I've played it way too much, and it's, I don't know, it can come back from anywhere. And I mean, sure, it has an abysmal Tron matchup, but just sometimes you get that Okabagang Shinobi that they never expect, and it rips the hand to shreds, and that's all you need to be able to get those last couple of points of damage in before you get completely locked out like usual.
Well, if a Akibagang Shinobi connects twice, you're really probably winning this game. Yeah, it's probably just true across the board. So it can be one of those cards that can just swing a game for you. So it's tough to not like that in a Magic card, especially in Pauper.
Yeah, and I've built it in paper, and I've played it at a couple of GPs, the Pauper side events, when they fire. Sometimes they don't fire, and I seem to always go 2-3. I can never get the 3-0, but I mean, it's decently consistent, and it just seems to have a decent matchup against everything except Tron.
That sounds fun. It's a shame that they don't fire. That's not a problem I have experienced at Grand Prix side events. I was able to play a handful back in the previous year. I wound up finishing 12-3, I think, in the tournaments. Yeah, I finished 12-3 in all the Grand Prix side events. All 3 matches I lost to the same guy over the course of the same weekend, and I was on a different deck every time, and he was just on the same deck, and he just had his way with me with 80 card teachings. He was just like, nope, I have the answers. I am the control deck.
Oh, rough. Oh man, 80 card teachings, 3-0ing every event. Jesus.
Well, no, I don't think that he won all the events. Like, he lost to...
Oh, okay. You probably played him round 1 or something. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, definitely once I did. I also played him round 3. He denied me the 3-0. And it was for him to get to 2-1. So...
At the Sydney GP that was at the end of last year, I brought like a variety of decks to play. And I played some Pioneer and Modern, and I wanted to play the Pauper. I played one Pauper. There was only 8 people, and then I tried to sign up for the Pauper on Sunday. I did so, and then it was like 4 p.m. It was time to fire. There was no announcement over the thing, so I'm just like, oh, what's going on? So I'll just wait a bit, and then it's 4:15. I'm like, I should really figure out what's going on. Go to the judge's desk, and they're like, yeah, you're the only one to register. Here, have your ticket back. It was very depressing.
Yeah, it's a real shame. You mentioned that you brought other decks, though, Pioneer and Modern. It sounds like you play other formats in addition to Pauper. What makes you stick with Pauper? Because it sounds like you're not a specialist. A lot of people who have come on the podcast previously, they've only really played Pauper, right? And they had like a point in time in which they became like a specialist, a full-on Pauper player. As someone who plays, a handful of different formats, it sounds like, what is it about Pauper that attracts you to it as opposed to just playing those other formats?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a specialist I'm not. I guess I'm mostly just a casual. I just play whatever I want, but I feel like Pauper is the main thing that I play. If you look at anything on my MTGO, like my listings, or my results, I should say, it's always Pauper. There was one Pioneer one I had in there. It's just because it seems to be the format I enjoy the most. I don't know. I've played it so much that I'm just used to the meta, and it feels nice to just continue to play and iterate when the meta doesn't change too much, which I think is why I enjoy it the most compared to every other format. Because you've got Legacy and Vintage, they don't change too much. I suppose Modern does too, but there's the whole Oko debacle and whatnot where it just waxes and wanes. But it seems to be fairly fixed, Pauper, so you can just stick with your cheap deck, continue on, and just keep plugging through with that one until it becomes moderately unfavored. Then you can switch to something else, and then that'll probably become moderately unfavored. There's a sort of ebb and flow that I enjoy of it. So you can stick with 1 or 2 decks and always have a decent matchup against everything, if that makes sense at all.
It sounds like that you're not the kind of guy that doesn't know what he's going to play. You have a deck for a format, and you're sticking with it once you've learned it. It seems very practical.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, the deck that you were playing before Bogles in the Astrolabe era was red-white metalcraft, which I know because I was one of the other few people that was interested in that deck at the time. At the end, did you have any Porcelain Legionnaires in there?
No, well, mine was a sort of offshoot of that build. I was the only one that seemed to play my version of the deck, which was Kuldotha Rebirth plus 2 Bushwhacker plus 2 Rites of Initiation. So it just had these blazingly fast starts. You could win on turn 3 out of nowhere. You can just go like Snow-Covered Land, Astrolabe, not play a land, play the Kuldotha Rebirth, sack the Astrolabe, and then next turn don't play land, swing with everything. They don't block, and you just Rites of Initiation, discard your entire hand, they take 21.
Yeah, I was doing a lot more fair stuff, it sounds like. I was casting like Porcelain Legionaries, so I was dreaming a little smaller.
Oh, the deck was great. It was just it was a vision I had because I saw the red-white Metalcraft deck, but I'm like, I just want to play Bushwhacker, and now Astrolabe allows me to play double red while still having the white I need to play all the bounce birds, as I like to call them, the Glinthawk and the Core Skyfisher. And playing those with the Astrolabe package, like you can grind a decent amount to be able to beat the sort of mid-rangey control decks if they take a long time, if you don't like one-shot them at the start.
Yeah, I had fun with that deck as well during that time period. Your version sounds like something I would have liked to have tried, but I did not have the opportunity. Ultimately, though, you didn't quite crack a top 8 with the Metalcraft deck. Can you tell me about how you found yourself in the Format Championship?
So, this is quite an interesting story. So, there was how many qualifiers? There was 4 plus a bonus one. I couldn't make the first 2 because I didn't have enough qualifier points. So I made the third one, which was, the one I played the red-white Metalcraft deck in. So I managed to lose to Jeskai at the start and then, like, win everything until I got to the last round where I had to play Jeskai again. And then I lost, and I ended up 11th, I believe, at the end of that qualifier. So all I needed, I had a win in, and I missed it. Ended up 11th, and at the end, I tried to figure out if I could like get the top 8 qualifier, the invite, I should say, because we knew 2 of the people in the top 8 already had an invite, so it got passed down to 10th. So I was 1 position off, which made it even more disheartening that I was that close to get the invite for the championship. So then I couldn't make the bonus qualifier because I had to work. These challenges are at 2 to 4 a.m. for me on a Monday in Australia, and I start work at 7 a.m. So I usually cannot make any of these challenges. I took the day off to do the other one. Well, I had someone here trying to fix an aircon, so it was an excuse to stay late, and I couldn't make that one. I made the last one because it was on a public holiday. I played White-Black Pestilence. God knows why. It's not good in this meta, but it's what I wanted to play. I went 3-3 drop. I think it was 7 rounds. And then I just went, oh well, it was a good try. So I only tried in 2 qualifiers. And then when the championship nominations got announced, my name was there for the 8th position of qualifier 3. So I didn't understand at the time. I was just amazed I qualified. So I thought, all right, cool. This is good. I'll take the day off and prepare for championships. And I think we'll talk about preparation in a tad bit, but what I found out was that one player in the first qualifier was ineligible. I got an email from Wizards. I forgot to mention this, but I didn't notice until after I saw my name on the list. And there was one person that was deemed ineligible in qualifier 1, which therefore shifted his invite down to Kazana 3000. Now, Kazana 3000 got 7th or 8th in qualifier 3, so that made him not need an invite there, so it passed the invite down to me, which, I mean, it's all a whole pile of circumstance, but it was just quite a bit of luck that went my way that I got the qualification.
That's amazing. That's amazing because the guy who ruined his prospects with whatever he was doing, that got his account removed by MTGO, when his invite went away, it didn't even go to you, it went to some other guy that was just, fortunate enough to have already gotten the job done. So it's not even like you almost got there and some guy did something silly, got his account banned, and now you can play the event. There's just this whole other level to that.
I think it's hilarious. The most hilarious part is that there was so many things that needed to go my way. I needed like someone to get banned either in mine or in like an earlier qualifier that they'd already qualified in, and it just happened. So thanks Kazna 3000 for coming 9th in the first qualifier. Otherwise I wouldn't be here now.
It's a very interesting journey from not being able to play most of the qualifiers to almost getting there to, where you are now. So tell me about the tournament preparation. I know that you had a spreadsheet because that's sort of where our paths started crossing leading up to this event, is that you were putting together a spreadsheet to prepare for this, an event where, it's going to happen at 4 a.m. for you. So you have to get the day off work to focus on this. At what point do you alter the sleep schedule? At what point did you start testing? Was it always Bogles? I have so many questions.
Okay, so the preparation was a little bit different to what I usually do, which was all I usually do is just pick a deck I want to play and play it, and that's it. But I'd be given this gift. I should not have qualified, so let's use it to my full potential that I have and see what I can do. So I don't think I'm a great Magic player by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm good with stats, as I like to think, and I'm good with just research. So I thought, well, how about the champs was interesting because you knew every single player that was going to be in it. So I thought there's no other format like this. So I can just search up all their results and figure out what they're likely to play. So yeah, I made a decent looking spreadsheet that just put who was in there, what they were likely to play, how many postings they had on MTG Goldfish, which was challenge results and League 5.0s. I also counted how many trophies they had in the current league, and then just took a rough stab as to what they might play. And I wrote a little blurb about each of them, if they were a challenge grinder that didn't usually play Pauper, or if they only stick to one deck or whatnot, just to help remind me so I didn't have to keep looking at all the data all the time. And it ended up looking pretty decent. And what I found out is that all the top players, they were all going to be on Tron. So I just had to go, well, let's see if we can find something that could beat Tron.
And you found it in Bogles. At what point did you switch over to that? How soon were you locked into this tournament? Was it a week before? Was it 2 weeks before?
So I did a lot of testing of various decks just to see what I would like. And you should know, I ran into you into leagues 3 different times after I gave you my spreadsheet.
Yeah, but you were playing a different deck every time.
I know. That was the best part, to try and confuse you as to what I was going to play.
I mean, yeah, sure it works, but I was too busy failing how to learn Bogles myself for that to matter. It's too busy wasting my time learning how to play a deck, or failing rather to learn how to play a deck that ultimately I didn't play.
You were on Blue Black Delver every single time. I think I went Affinity, then Bogles, or Boggles, Hexproof, whatever people want to call it, and then I was on White Black Pestilence. You beat me on the first two, and I beat you with White Black Pestilence. So I thought I might throw you back onto I'd be on White Black Pestilence, but apparently that didn't work.
Well, I never really thought you'd be on White Black Pestilence into, as you described, a event full of Tron, right? That just, you have a spreadsheet, I know that there's no way you're on White Black Pestilence. Yeah, of course it beats Blue Black Delver, always has. Usually will. Don't remember. I'm really surprised that I was on Blue Black Delver all 3 times, because I did play a lot of Bogles in the week leading up to the championship before jumping ship, just audibling it. But to bring it back though, I am curious about how you prepared for this event, considering it started at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning for you. How many days in advance are you changing your sleep schedule? What was that week like? Tell me about the little things you did to prepare, right? Because that's a strange time to play such a high variance in terms of prize support tournament.
I didn't actually do that much in the form of little things. All I did was just make sure everything was set up so nothing would bother me, and just hope that my internet did not die. I just had a normal weekend. Well, I grinded a lot on leagues. Didn't stay up too late. Went to bed at relatively early-ish, 9 p.m. On the day that I do it though, on the day of the champs, I had a decently early night, probably 8:30 I went to bed, except my mind was still racing, trying to figure out if my choice was right or if I should change at the last minute. I had signed up for the event the night before, just in case if I slept in or my alarm didn't go off, which has happened before. And yeah, it was at 4:05. I woke up at 3:45 to give myself a bit of decent headspace, so I'm not just woken up and a bit groggy and not knowing what I'm actually doing, actually try and make the correct lines.
So that's it. You just woke up 20 minutes before the tournament and just sat down and bogles people. Walk me through the tournament. What did you play against that day?
Well, actually, I'll go back a bit and I'll actually say why I actually picked Bogles. I know we discussed because it was...
Please do.
The reason I picked... Well, I ended up on Hexproof, Bogles. I like to call it Bogles. Everyone else calls it Bogles. I'll just call it Hexproof, I guess, just to save people getting angry at me. I picked it because I tested... There was 3 decks that I was mucking around with in the leagues, which was White Black Pestilence just because I like to play it. I knew it had no chance. Affinity and Hexproof. So Affinity and Hexproof were the 2 decks that I was most likely going to play, because the only thing that I feel that can beat Tron is just a linear aggro deck, and I didn't have the reps with Elves. Elves is a decent linear aggro combo deck that also seems to do well against Tron, but it's got a lot of moving parts that I just don't feel like I have the reps in to make it work. So it was either Affinity or Hexproof. I managed to 4-1 and 5-0 a league with Hexproof the day before the tournament, and I only managed to do a 2-3 and a 3-2 with Affinity. I pretty much locked in Hexproof because it just had the best run I had of the 2 decks that I thought would have the best chance in the champs.
I think both of those are pretty good decisions. I was considering Affinity as well, but I was sort of advised against it leading up to the event, which steered me into Bogles, a deck which I don't know what my deal is, but I can't seem to keep 7. Had a lot of 2-3s myself.
Yeah, it's a deck that mulligans like an absolute champ. You need to just find... You can win off mulligans to 4, but you just need to find land, creature, some decent aura, and then you're just off to the races.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I tried. At any rate, the tournament itself, what did you play against that day?
All right, so let's run through this tournament. So round 1, I got paired against Pascal. He was on Tron. I just got completely demolished. I went 0-2 in round 1. I think I got him to 6 on turn 4, and then he just fog locked me forever, and I think I mulled to 5 in game 2 and just died. So it was a great start to the tournament going 0-1, and I just resigned myself to having a good day off and not doing very well. Round 2 was Federusher. He was on Boros Bully. Game 1 got a quick, big life-linking Glade Cover Scout that I gave Vigilance. He kept Prismatic Strandsing, but he eventually ran out. He couldn't attack in because it had Vigilance. Game 2, he blew me out with a Leave No Trace on a Armadillo Cloak, so I lost every aura and all my creatures died. So yeah, happens. Game 3 was rather interesting, which I'm going to keep for my play of the day, but I did win that one. And then round 3, I played A Adapter. He's always a nice guy. He was on Tron, just 2'd him. He mulled to 5 game 1, and game 2, I just turned forward him. Sometimes Boggles just turns 4, and there's nothing Tron can do. Round 4 was against Birdman, or Entropy 265. I'm not entirely sure what his username is. He was also on Tron, but he was on the Lone Missionary version with Prismatic Strands. Game 1, I luck out to draw the Rancor off the top to give my creature trample on turn 5. When he tapped out to play a deep analysis. Game 2, I keep a pretty average hand and get fog locked out of the game. Game 3, I mull to a decent 5. I threaten lethal by turn 5, and he shows me all he has is 3 lands in hand on turn 5 and a pile of lands in play and nothing. So that was rough for him. Round 5 was against Modern Monkey, and he was also on Tron. So what's that? The 4th Tron player of the tournament out of 5 rounds so far. I lose the die roll game 1, and I threaten lethal by turn 4, but he fogs me, and then just Stonehorn locks me from there. Games 2 and 3, I tried to look at my replays because I can't remember, but I did win both. I do remember dispelling something which was my last card in hand in one of them to be able to get the win. Round 6, I played Vovoler. He was also on Tron, and I 2-1'd him. Game 1, I won on turn 4, and then round 2, I get locked out on turn 4, and then game 3, I win on turn 4. It's just how Boggles goes. In the top 8, I had to play against Vovoler again, which I really don't like it when you play as soon as you get into the top 8 and you have to play the same person again. It just feels bad. And I 2-0'd him this time. He didn't hit Tron after turn 5. And yeah, that he tried to evoke a Muldrift and he couldn't find anything. And I think he mulliganed to Oblivion in game 2. And then in the semis, I get to play something that wasn't Tron. After like 5 Trons in a row, I got to play against Ponderous on his mono green land destruction. I win the die roll, which pretty much just sets up the entire match. So I pretty much win the die roll, suit up a Boggle, swing in. Game 2, he Arbor Elves, blows up my land on turn 2, and then blows up my land on turn 3, and then blows up my land on turn 4. I can't do anything about that. Game 3, I'm now on the play again. So Boggle, suit up, swing. You can't stop that. And that finally makes it to the finals, where I got to play against Raptor in his weird familiars. I don't know, what would you call it?
He calls it Rainbow Familiars.
Okay, Rainbow Familiars. Game 1 was the weirdest game to probably ever start a finals. I mulligan no-lander to a 1-lander and keep, and Raptor mulligans all the way down to 4. I play a Scout, I equip it with a Rancor, and then I believe I play a Boggle. I'm still stuck on 1 land at this point, and I just keep swinging with 2 creatures for 4 damage every turn, and I try and enchant my land with the land enchantments to try to turn it to get a white source to make the clock a bit quicker, but he prohibits, but he just does absolutely nothing otherwise, and these 2 stupid creatures managed to beat him down. And then in game 2, I got like the dream start of, like the turn 4 kill, but he had the fog to stop me, but I had the card I probably should have mentioned in my build of Boggles, but I got to Essence Harvest him on turn 4 when all he had was Prohibit up, and Prohibit can't counter it when he's only got 2 mana. And with that, I managed to take down the entire championship.
I was actually going to ask you whether or not that card came in handy at any points. It stood out as a newer inclusion in the Boggles list. Previously, they were playing Soul's Fire. Previous to that, they were playing Fling. So I was just about to ask you if it ever came in handy, but it sounds like that's how you won the tournament with it. What was your mind like when you see Raptor go down to 4? Is the heart start pounding? Are you a little excited at this point?
When I got to, I was impressed I got to top 8, and from there I was freaking out. I had no idea. I'm like, well, I got to top 8, this is pretty good. I'll get like set of Eldraine. This is great. I could now play MTGO for quite some time. And then it's just like, oh, I beat him. That's good. Hey, I make another Throne of Eldraine set. Hooray. And it's like, oh, well, it'll be fine if I lose the next one. And then win that one. And you go, I wonder if I could win this whole thing. And then, I talked to Raptor before we started in the finals, and apparently he was just as nervous as I was. I think we went to the toilet like 5 times before the finals. Just very, not a confident Magic player, I must admit. Very, very nervous, and just hope for the best, which the little boggly boys get there.
Well, it's quite the story from start to finish. Well, it's one of those truth is stranger than fiction situations. The champion of Pauper didn't qualify for it, didn't expect for himself to win it, but you did. And having done so, you saved a play of the day in there. Are you ready to share that? Okay,
so my play of the day is, so it was round 2 against Fred Rusher on Bully. So there was a lot of back and forth. He's sunk a lot of time. Like, I am 6 or 7 minutes ahead of him at this point, and his clock's on red, so I think he's only got like 3 minutes left. So on board, I've got a 10-5 Boggle with Lifelink and Vigilance, and 2 other Hexproof guys, probably 2 Glade Cover Scouts, and he's got like 3 Seeker of the Ways and a couple of Squadron Hawks, and he's just been digging forever with these Faithless Lootings to try and find the Leave No Trace to be able to blow me out, which he still hasn't found. I think he's only got like 20 cards left in his library, if that. And he's just been fogging me out with Prismatic Strands. So he rips an Electrickery off the top and kills my 2 blockers, and he swings in with everything. So all I've got at this point is my 10-5 Boggle, and there's 2 3-3 Seekers and a couple of Squadron Hawks with lifelink now. And I think I'm at like 7 or something. So I need to block because I am just dead on board at this point. He's got a Prismatic Strands in the graveyard. He just cast a Thraben Inspector. So, and my Boggle has 1 damage on it already from the Electrickery. So I'm sitting here thinking, I need to block a Seeker, but I can't, because if I do, he'll just Prismatic Strands, and then the Seeker will get up to a 4/4, which will then trade with my Boggle with the 1 damage from the Electrickery on it. So I just sit here and think, I'm like, I do not want to be 0-2 at this point. What can I do? And I literally have nothing. My play is to do nothing, and I sit here and just look and go, how do I get out? And I think he was nervous because he only had 2 minutes left, or maybe it was because I sat in the tank for so long. But I went and blocked the Seeker, and combat just went through. There was no Prismatic Strands. The Boggle lived. I gained a pile of life from the Armadillo Cloak, and I'm just amazed that I'm still in this. And then next turn I attack. He doesn't even use the Strands then, and I gain a pile more life, and I'm back up to 20, and from there it's trivial. I believe the next turn he uses the Strands, so he knew it was there, or maybe he forgot. I don't know. So I know it's not really a play of the day. It's more of a misplay of the day. But that was the most exciting line of my entire championship, because otherwise that was almost the only game that wasn't Tron, and all it was against Tron was turn for them or they turn for me.
So it sounds almost like that was the point where your day turned around, because you started off with a loss and then you had your back up against the wall, and all of a sudden it's almost like a switch was flipped, right? Your opponent made a mistake, you capitalized, and from there you won all the rounds. And in the end, what exactly have you won? You won a couple of sets of Throne. What was the format championship worth? What are your prizes?
So with the prizes, I believe there's 4 normal sets of Throne, a foil set of Throne, something like 200 Throne boosters, and like 500 play points, but no one cares about those. And well, the main thing that everyone wanted to win was the invite to the MOX Championship, so Magic Online Championship Series. So I am the Pauper qualifier for the MOX. There was one for each of the different formats. So I get to go to America, and apparently minimum prize payout is 5,000 US for 24th place, and there's only 24 people. So I mean, I may as well go. It pays for the airfare itself.
It's also going to be a really unique experience that, very few people get to experience. There's a lot of people who play Magic the Gathering, millions, but only 24 players a year get to participate in this event. So I hope it works out for you. How are you going to prepare for it? Or do you even know what the formats are going to be?
Well, no, they haven't even given me a date of when it is. So I can't even prepare and book flights or allocate holidays as of this point in time. So I'm assuming they'll tell me in probably February. They told me late spring, which is going to be, May or June, I believe. So it'll be around that, but I got no idea on dates. I got no idea on what formats that are going to be there, but looking at previous MOXs, there's been sort of a mix of limited and 3 different constructed formats. Standard, Modern, Legacy. There'll probably be Pioneer in this one. So it'll be a fun time. I'm going to have to probably play a decent amount of different formats to try and learn about them, but I don't know, it'll be fun.
You also won an invitation to another tournament. What did it wind up being? Because I remember speculating how that was going to work out, because originally it was announced that you also go to the Pro Tour, but they don't necessarily do a Pro Tour anymore. What else are you qualified for?
So yeah, I forgot about that, but there's also a qualification. I am now actually qualified for the Players Tour, as it is now known. So, because you need to do all those PTQs and whatnot to be able to get on the Players Tour. But yeah, I've got an automatic invite with this win, which it's for Q2, so the quarter 2 Players Tours. Apparently there's one in each region. There's one in APAC, one in Europe, and one in America, in which the one in APAC's in Japan, and that's the closest to me, except for the fact that Japan this year is Tokyo 2020 Olympics. So the flights there are ridiculous, so I can't actually go to that one. If all lines up with the MOX, then I might be able to go to the American one if the dates are roughly the same, so I can but I'm probably not going to use it just because the dollar value output is not worth it to me. I'm not that much of a player that I'd want to be on the Pro Tour. I don't think I'm good enough to be on the Pro Tour, to be honest. I'm just here to have a bit of fun, and if luck goes my way, then I'll take it.
Yeah, and I think that's the right attitude. It's unfortunate that you're sort of kept away from being able to go to a players tour in Japan. That would have been a really cool experience, I'm sure. But unlucky there that the Olympics are happening, sounds like, around the same time. That might be the first situation where your luck sort of turned against you in this conversation, in your story.
Yeah, I know. I've done a GP in Japan once. That was fun. Except, I just did side events, and I did limited. I think the main event was standard. It was GP Shizuoka. I didn't feel confident enough in standard, so I just played limited, which was Guilds of Ravnica, and I did a limited fanatic, and it's fun trying to converse with people in a different language, especially when you can't read the cards, but at least I'd played enough of guilds to be able to know what everything does with the art. It's just trying to convey it's like your turn and I target this, and it's I don't know. Magic's great because it's decently universal. There's not much of a language barrier.
I haven't had the opportunity to play outside my own country. Well, I mean, I've played in Canada before, but I don't feel like that really counts. They do speak the same language. They have a similar culture. I drove across a river, really. What did I do? So hearing you describe it, though, is something that, does make me look forward to experiencing it. I guess I've played against opponents who were foreign that there was a language barrier, but never where I was the one that wasn't speaking the language that everyone else was speaking. What else do you have coming up for you this year, right? You're not going to play the Players Tour. You are going to play the mocks. Are you going to travel to any other events? Or are you going to buckle down and grind out the online series? What do you plan for 2020?
So the problem with my day, I'd like Pauper and I'd want to play it, except for the fact that it's on at 4 a.m. on a Monday, so I can't make the challenges. Although I'm going to make the next one because it falls on Australia Day, a public holiday, which is the Showcase Challenge, the new Pauper Playoffs event. So I'm going to try that. I'll see if I can qualify for the next mocks as well, or the next Players Tour. You never know. A pile of people might get disqualified again and I might get there. But otherwise, I'm probably just going to grind a bit on MTGO on different formats, just probably play leagues casually, and once the event's known, I'll probably grind those formats a little bit just so I am a bit prepared. But otherwise, for the rest of the year, I'll use my Mox points on challenges, probably sealed ones. I feel like I'm a decent sealed player if they're on at the right time, but otherwise I'll probably just go. The only other main thing is the one Australian GP. We used to have two, now we only get one this year, so I'll go to that at the end of the year, and that's probably the only other main event I'm going to be in. And well, if there is a GP around the time of the mocks, I'll do that in the US because, I mean, I'm there, I may as well.
Before you wind up going, I do want to check in with you about your perceptions with the deck. Some people are going to be picking up Bogles now that it's won an event like this. What are you hoping to play against with the deck like this, and what are you hoping not to play against with the deck like this?
So you want to play against Tron? No, you never want to play against Tron, but if you do, at least you've got a decent deck to try and beat it with, Boggles. Otherwise, you don't want to play against black decks because Edict's the bane of your existence. You can try and play around them with Kalni Gardens and Cartouche of Solidarities, but they will get you eventually. So sort of slow, dirtly decks. Red-White's a decent matchup. Burn's great because you got so many lifelink enchantments. Elves is weird because you go tall, they go wide. It's just a race to see whoever draws the right things at the right time. I think that's probably decently about it. Like, it's decent enough. I've been playing it in leagues recently, and it's been doing quite badly because I keep running into blue-black Delver and mono-black Control. I don't know why people keep playing mono-black Control. I don't think it's that great, but it just completely stomps Bogles most of the time.
They do have edicts.
Yeah, edicts are not your friend.
Sounds like edicts are the enemy.
Oh, and I'll talk about the deck. So the deck I took was pretty much exclusively for the challenge. That's why I've got 2 Essence Harvest main. I do not recommend playing 2 Essence Harvest main. That was only because I knew there'd be a pile of Tron and I needed to break through the fog locks. Just run 1 in the Soul Flyer / Fling slot. It seems to be, it's good as a way to get through. I picked it because it doesn't get countered by Dispel, it gets through Prismatic Strands, doesn't get Hydro-blasted, I guess, is probably another reason. So yeah, keep one of those. The other thing, I played Nylia's Presence, and what I found in playing leads afterwards is that it makes River Boa unblockable. So it's not good. Change that to, I think it's Utopia Vow. There was one from Return to Ravnica. It does the exact same thing as Abundant Growth. It just costs 1 more. So just change that to that, and that's sweet. And that's probably all I'd change. The deck seems pretty decent. With Theros, though, there's a lot of new toys to muck around with, like the Transcendent Envoy, the one that makes auras cost 1 less. That seems decent enough. Sentinel Eyes seems great. I'd probably cut Cartouche of Solidarity for it, and possibly the Fight card. It's probably better than Cartouche of Strength. It's a 2 mana +0/+2 and fights a creature. It seems alright. Probably as a sideboard card. I don't know if it's got enough main. And it's a 2 mana green enchantment that draws a card and gives +1/+0 and trample, in which it seems good for this version of the deck because all you want to do is play a lot of auras and then suit up with either Ancestral Mask or Ethereal Armor. They're your main 2 win conditions. So if you're playing an enchantment that draws a card, it gets you that much closer to one of those and helps buff them up. So it seems decent. I just don't know. You might even cut a Rancor for it. Rancor is becoming less and less relevant in Boggles as time goes on, which is sad to see, but at least it means new cards are coming into the format.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you walked us through that for anyone who's considering playing Boggles. Myself, I think I've had enough of them. I failed to master their slippery nature.
They are very slippery.
Yeah, and in doing so, my chances for the tournament slip through my fingers. But now that the cat's out of the bag, it seems like there's going to be a lot more sideboard cards out there for Boggles, which is less of a reason to play them, in my viewpoint at least.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I was talking about at the start. There's like ebbs and flows. So if Tron's taking over, play a lot of linear aggro decks. Play Affinity and Boggles. Like, if one seems to work, then they'll change sideboard cards to Serene Grace to be able to blow up all auras. And then if that keeps getting you down, shift to Affinity, because they'll have less artifact hate in their graveyard and their sideboard. So yeah, is best part about Pauper. So many different decks, and you can always change them to suit the meta.
So what are your sliver abilities?
Okay, so my normal Magic the Gathering one was inspired by the Mystery Booster product. So I want to give all slivers buyback 3.
Okay, so buyback doesn't ever hit play, right?
It actually has a use, trust me.
So it works for...
Doesn't work in a Pauper sense, but it works with the first sliver, because it gives all slivers Cascade.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I would not have expected anyone to put buyback on a creature, let alone on a sliver.
I thought it'd be funny.
Well, it's definitely silly.
Yeah, I know. There's one in the Mystery Booster product. I think it says if you cast this, draw a card. It's really interesting. I thought it'd be funny if you put it on a sliver, because at least it has a use. You just gotta have the other sliver to make it useful. No, it's hilariously silly.
What is your other flavor of silly sliver ability?
Okay, so the other flavor of silly ability is, I don't know, I think slivers have had a hard day because they won the last championship, or the last challenge, which was rather interesting. So I think they need a vacation. So I want all slivers to have free public transport, but only on weekends. So they can't use it to get to work, but it gives them a bit of an outlet to, I don't know, go to the beach or something that they wouldn't be otherwise able to.
Well, I didn't even realize that all slivers have stress, or that all slivers have employment. But now that I do know that makes sense. They probably do need some time off. What actually is your take on slivers quietly winning the challenge while everybody else played in the championship? I think it's kind of important to note that most of the best Pauper players weren't really present in that challenge. And it's not taking anything away from the winner. It's just... It's worth noting.
I think it's hilarious. I mean, everyone just thinks of slivers as the meme of Pauper, but as you like to play them, they're pretty decent, and I've played them before. I rather enjoy them. They're great. It's nice that they can, like, it's tier 2, but I mean, given the right circumstances, they can always eke out that win. They're slippery, they're slimy, and I mean, that's why we love them, right?
Well, actually, I think they're scaly, so they're probably dry.
Oh, sorry, I'm still on the Boggles train, sorry. They're slippery.
Yeah, indeed they are. Well, right on, man. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, navigating the incredible time difference to do so. I think your story is beyond interesting. I wish you all the best in your pursuit of the mocks, and I can't wait to see what you do next in Pauper.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had a great time. I've listened to your podcast, and it's, really fun. So I'm glad to be on it, and you're a great host. I hope I do the Pauper community proud at the mocks.
And thanks once more to my guest for coming on the podcast. Congratulations are due to our champion. It's unfortunate that he's unable to attend the Players Tour, but I do wish him the very best of luck in the mocks. Truth can certainly be stranger than fiction. Really, never in a million years would have guessed that the guy that somehow snuck in at the last minute due to a string of circumstances would be walking away with a grand prize. Bogles was a great call. I really should not have audibled the day before. Maybe I would have done better. That is going to conclude the Pauper Players podcast coverage of the Format Championship. I thought there were some truly fascinating stories in this top four, and I'm so very happy to have had this opportunity to speak with all four of those players. Coming up on the podcast, an interview with Caleb Gannon, who shapes the metagame in an entirely different way than our previous guests have, and I can't wait to share that with you. Please do join me next week, and I'll see you there.